Let us go back to a time of mystery and power, to an era when kingdoms rose and fell like the tides, and empires spread like shadows across the earth, silently, relentlessly. Imagine, if you will, a place so vast, so grand, that the very earth itself seemed to tremble under its might. This was the Persian Empire, a land of unimaginable wealth, of fertile valleys and towering mountains, of golden palaces and sacred temples. But what held it together was not just brute force, not just armies marching in perfect rhythm under the command of its kings. No, it was something subtler, something far more silent, more patient, and, in many ways, more terrifying. For in every corner of that empire, hidden among the common folk, there were agents, watchers, listeners. They were known as the eyes and ears of the king. A whisper here, a stray glance there. Nothing escaped their gaze. It was said that wherever one stood, wherever one went, the king's eyes followed. But let's take a step back, shall we? Picture the ruler at the heart of all this, Darius the Great, they called him. And he was not just any king. Oh no, he was a man who understood that ruling an empire was not simply about wielding a sword or commanding armies. It was about understanding his people, truly understanding them, knowing their thoughts, their fears, their ambitions. And Darius had a vision for his empire, one of order, of loyalty, of unity, no matter the cost. So he devised this extraordinary network, the eyes and ears of the king, a system of intelligence so refined, so quietly omnipresent, that it became a part of the empire itself, woven into its very fabric. These agents were everywhere, but nowhere. They blended in, they whispered in hushed tones, they moved without being seen. Their presence was felt but never known. Imagine for a moment you're a humble merchant in a busy marketplace. You're selling your wares, surrounded by the clamor of people, the bartering, the scent of exotic spices filling the air. Life seems ordinary, unassuming, but is it really? Somewhere nearby, hidden in the shadows, someone is watching. Not out of personal curiosity, no, but because it is their duty, a duty to the king. They are there to observe, to note every whisper, every gesture, to listen for any trace of dissent, any hint of rebellion. You see, the brilliance of Darius's network was its subtlety. He knew that a blatant show of force could breed resentment, but a quiet watchfulness could breed compliance, submission. With this system, he didn't need grand declarations, didn't need to flaunt his power. His agents did not wear uniforms, nor did they carry any insignia. They were just there, part of the scenery, blending into the life of the empire like shadows in the night. And the people knew. They felt it in the back of their minds, that lingering unease, that second glance over the shoulder. They knew that someone was watching, even if they didn't know who or where. This was the genius of Darius. He created not just a system of surveillance, but an atmosphere of watchfulness, an empire-wide awareness that the king's eyes were everywhere. And so rebellions were quelled before they even began. Whispers of dissent were silenced before they could grow louder. And the people, well, they went about their lives. For how could they ever hope to stand against something they couldn't even see? And so across this vast empire, from the grand halls of Persepolis to the farthest reaches of the provinces, a kind of silent order reigned. Darius sat on his throne, hundreds, even thousands of miles away. Yet his reach extended everywhere, quietly. It was as if his presence filled the air, thick and inescapable. Now let me tell you about one of the greatest tests of this network, an episode that would have shattered lesser empires. The year was 522 BCE. Darius had only recently come to power, and like a storm on the horizon, rebellion was brewing. Oh yes, Babylon, that ancient proud city, rose up in defiance, declaring its independence, challenging the rule of Darius himself. And they weren't alone. Across the empire, other regions, emboldened by Babylon's defiance, began to stir, to question, to resist. But Darius, he was ready, he was prepared. Long before swords clashed, long before battle cries echoed, his eyes and ears had already told him what was to come. They whispered of meetings in the dead of night, of secret alliances, of hidden caches of weapons. The rebellion was doomed before it even began. And when Darius's forces finally marched on Babylon, they moved with a deadly precision. They knew which streets would be safe, which temples harbored insurgents. The rebellion was crushed, and the message was clear. Defy the king, and you would be watched, found, silenced. Such was the power of the eyes and ears. It was not brute force that held the empire together. It was knowledge, quiet, invisible knowledge. Knowledge that bound every province, every city, every village to the will of the king. And so the empire of Persia continued, a vast and intricate tapestry held together not by fear alone, but by something deeper. By an unspoken understanding, a silent pact that bound its people to their ruler. For in the Persian Empire, there was no corner too distant, no village too small where the eyes and ears of the king could not reach. But tell me, friends, has anything truly changed? But our tale does not end there. No, the legacy of the Persian Empire and the reach of the eyes and ears of the king stretched far beyond Darius's lifetime, echoing through the ages, seeping into the very soul of every society that came after. You see, Darius's mastery of surveillance and control would inspire countless rulers, from emperors to kings, all the way to the leaders of our modern age. His invisible web of watchers, it was a system so elegantly effective that it became a blueprint, a model of how power could be wielded without a single sword being raised. And while many of those who inherited this knowledge would wield it wisely, many others would wield it with a cruelty that Darius himself could not have imagined. Imagine, if you will, how the Romans took note of the Persian network. Even centuries later, the mighty Roman Empire would deploy its own agents, spies, who walked among the people, listening, observing, ensuring loyalty to the emperor. The seed planted by Darius had grown, spreading across continents and civilizations. So even in the dark, shadowy corners of medieval Europe, kings and queens adopted their own methods of silent control. Whispers in the court, agents moving through marketplaces, disguised among pilgrims and peasants alike. All of them quietly reporting back, ensuring that those in power would remain untouchable, their rule unquestioned. By then, Darius's network had evolved into something so complex, so deeply woven into the fabric of society, that it became almost indistinguishable from the very essence of governance itself. And so history continued to unfold, from the Ottomans, who used their janissaries and palace servants as a network of informants, to the Russian czars, whose agents in the third section would listen at every door, every tavern, and every street corner. Nations rose and fell, but the shadow of the eyes and ears remained constant, lurking, a silent testament to Darius's legacy. The pattern repeated, century after century, as if the concept had taken on a life of its own. In the grand palaces of Versailles, the Tsar's cold palaces in St. Petersburg, the twisting alleys of Constantinople, the watchers were always there, and with every passing age, the methods grew subtler, deadlier, more cunning. They adapted, embracing the latest technology, each new invention further blurring the line between ruler and subject. And as to here we are in the modern age. We live in a world shaped by technology beyond anything Darius could have dreamed, in a world where the watchers do not hide in the marketplace, nor do they whisper in the shadows. No, now they are in our pockets, in our homes, in the very air around us. To every phone call, every search, every word we speak into our screens. All of it recorded, all of it watched, all of it gathered into a vast, unseen web. A web that is, in many ways, as ancient as the Persian Empire itself. And so we find ourselves asking the same question that Darius's subjects once asked, looking over their shoulders in the crowded markets of ancient Persia. Are we alone, or are we forever watched? Perhaps if Darius were here today, he would marvel at how far his idea has come, Or perhaps he would recognize it, see it for what it is, and simply smile. For the eyes and ears of the king are more alive today than ever before, more pervasive, more omnipresent. And the question remains, has anything truly changed? I'll leave you with this, my friends. The past whispers to us even now. It urges us to remember, to look back, to understand. The stories of ancient Persia remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and names. It's a living force. And as we gaze into the mirror of the past, it gazes back at us, asking us to consider what kind of future we wish to create. Thank you for joining me on Echoes of the Past. If you're as captivated by these hidden truths and ancient mysteries as I am, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe, and together we'll continue to unearth the echoes of history. Those haunting reminders that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in every decision, every shadow, every whisper. Until next time, keep your mind sharp, your heart open, and remember, history is watching.